Gaia is the town right across the river. If you look at Porto, it's divided by the Douro. It's
Hmm.
only it's only a 10-minute walk. The best thing about Gaia is the view of Porto. You really get to appreciate how beautiful Porto is with the little stack homes and everything. Everywhere you look, the panoramic, it looks like a postcard.
Today we're heading over to the beautiful city of Porto with my new friend Kevin Young. Kevin, thanks so much for being a part of the podcast.
You're quite welcome. Are not a problem.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you where you're from, where you originate from, and how you landed in this beautiful country.
And really, it is beautiful. Well, I'm born and raised in New Bedford, Massachusetts, a small little town outside of Cape Cod, and it is a Portuguese community. It was never my intent up until a few years ago to move to Portugal, so that had nothing to do with it, other than the fact that I knew enough about the Portuguese people and heritage and their work ethic. I lived in Los Angeles for at least 30 years running an interior design business, and that unto itself, I got my skin 30 years there. It was time to get out, and I could just see where the United States was shifting a little bit. And when I looked at different areas to live in, be it Greece or France or Italy, Portugal started checking off all the right boxes for me. And knowing a little bit about the work ethic, it just seemed like a much easier fit, an easier transition to go into. And it's the best decision of my life to move to Portugal, moved out of the United States, moved to Portugal, and then to find Porto, which is an amazing community of people that are really genuinely nice,
Hmm.
part of the Portuguese. And I found that Porto was the pace of where I wanted to be, not Lisbon, which is like a city like a London, Los Angeles. It is more expensive. And so there's a little bit more of a different drive and a different struggle to live there. The Algarve is really good for retiring.
Hmm.
Porto is the great combination. It's not a city, it's more of a town that has everything going for it.
Hmm. What is
And
the
I,
yeah, what's the weather year around there? Because I hear I've seen the pictures. I've never been to Porto, but it's just so beautiful there. It's this.
it is everywhere you look, it's a postcard, let alone on
Yes.
the old stack homes. So the beautiful season is really May through October. Their rainy season, they may say it's November to February, March, April, thereabouts. The real true rainy season is January, February, where it might rain 4 days a week, as opposed to the other days it might rain. The other months it might rain 2 to 3 days a week, and that could be a torrential rainstorm for
Hmm.
about 5 or 6 hours. That's in
Hmm.
the heavy density of it. The weather here is just really idyllic. It averages probably, I'd say, anywhere from 70 to 80 degrees year round might be your average.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
It really is. It's like San Diego weather, but
Yeah.
we do have a rainy season, and that goes, like I said, from uh,
So then it
December.
becomes Seattle weather.
Some people say that, but I know that Seattle gets very, very cold and it's dreary. What's refreshing here is you're living in a beautiful old European town, and you have little villages all over the place. People are still drying their laundry. Everybody dries their laundry out on the lines. There's something that's a little bit more of a, I don't know, just a home feeling and comfort feeling, like a
Hmm.
very, very comfortable feeling living here that you get. Certain people get it, certain people don't.
Yeah.
It's everyone, but for the most people, when depending on where you are in your life, if you want to have a simpler, easier way of living, uh, and not have a lot of the trappings and not have a lot of the stress and the angst of living in the United States, especially for the direction it's going in, for me, Portugal wins out.
Okay, well, let's jump in. Thanks for that. Let's jump into visa. So everybody that's interested in moving to Porto or exploring the possibility, they need a visa. What kind of a visa do you have? What do you know? What you can share with us about a visa
I
requirement?
I applied for a D7 visa, which I'm not of age to retire. And
Okay.
a D7 gives you the option of you can move over here, you have sustainable income so that you're not a burden to the government system. and you have the option if you want to work or not, versus a work visa versus a student visa versus a retirement visa. And so mine was a D7, and the D7 gives you that flexibility. I work for myself as an interior designer here, and that gives me the option to, like I said, work. I'm not on a welfare system. I'm not asking the government for any kind of handouts. I came here with the minimum amount to move here, to have the account, to open the accounts up, and find work on my own as an independent.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that minimum is for the D7?
I don't, because
I think it,
when I applied 3 years ago, there were several social media groups that made it very, very easy for me to follow the files and to do everything. Now I know that the requirements have changed a lot.
yeah.
Uh, you need 10 or 12 certain documents you need, but they can't be stapled, they can't be paper clipped, they've got to be in a certain order, they cannot be more than 50 pages. And a lot of people opt to hire a lawyer and to do that for them, or to have the legal assistance to do it, to make sure that they do it right. I don't have that money. I'm a little bit more frugal, and I wanted to do it on my own. And in conjunction with me doing this, I had a very good friend of mine from Los Angeles do the same thing, but he hired a lawyer. He did everything identical. I saved myself probably about 6,000 dollars to do that. But I lean heavily on the social media groups and information like this with you, where people sharing their stories and sharing their process to make it a lot easier. Doing it blindly is difficult.
Sure.
Leaning on for support helps it. You're not the only person in this situation. You're not the only person from Florida or Kansas or wherever it is thinking about it. And the social media groups have people in every different stage. I'm thinking about it in 5 years. I'm thinking about it in 2 years. I'm coming here in 6 months for a scouting trip. I've applied for my D visa. Now I need to find a place. So there's always somebody in one stage or another asking very similar questions. You're not the only one there. And for me, that was very, very, very helpful. So
Yeah.
I came here on a visa, and once I got my visa, I'm now on my second residency card renewal. So I'm a resident of Portugal,
Okay.
and I get to renew that. I think I think this is how it is. Every 2 years, renew it for like the first 3 times in a row, first 6 years. Then you can apply for your citizenship after your 5 years, which gives you the right to vote.
Okay. Well, let's talk about flats. Everybody that's moving there, they need to identify an apartment or a place to live.
Right.
What are the low ends that you can get a flat in Porto today? And if there's any sites that you can recommend to actually, so people can find flats at home or identify flats, kind of browse, check out.
There's a few of them. When I moved here, I rented an Airbnb, which I thought was expensive at the time, and now I realize in hindsight it wasn't, and things have gone up. I was renting they're known as T1s, T2s. So a T1 is a 1 bedroom, a T2 is a 2 bedroom, and they're apartments more so than flats. And those a T1 these days, and I've got friends that are looking, are anywhere from 650 to 850, 950 euros a month. And all depends on where you want to go. I'm not in city center. I'm in a wonderful neighborhood called Bonfim. Bonfim right now is going through an amazing regentrification, basically, and the building's getting fixed up. It's art studios. There's no t-shirt shops. It was listed like 2 years ago, the coolest neighborhoods in the world.
Wow.
And it put it on the map. Again, Portugal going on the map, and then the different areas from Coimbra, Algarve, Lisbon becoming very, very popular. They were new destinations. I rented my Airbnb for a month and then 2 months with the intent that I was going to try to find my neighborhood. I knew nothing about Porto. I had no friends or family here. I came in here blindly. And my intent was rent an Airbnb for a couple of months, find out where I want to find and stay and live in an apartment and a neighborhood, and stay there and be like, a nomad, a forever renter. The more that I looked around and the more that I compared different apartments, the Airbnb that I was initially renting was ideal for me. And the person that owned it that lived out of the country. I wore them down after renewing my rental or my Airbnb after a year. And then I bought the place because it was just too good to be true.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm on a tree-lined street, which is unique. The sidewalks here are almost 2 meters wide, which is unique. They're cobblestones. They're one ways. There are no t-shirt shops or anything like that around here. It's not touristy. And I'm on the rooftop floor of a historic building with wraparound balconies. And
Wow.
my balconies is facing south, southeast, and north. And when you move here, you learn that apartments are sometimes a little bit more expensive if they're south facing because they will get sun. If they're north facing, they won't get sun. They might stay a little bit damper and a little bit cooler.
Gotcha.
Year round. They're not getting the direct sun.
Entry.
And that's a consideration. You have granite walls, which will retain the heat, the moisture, everything. Here, I'm very, very fortunate because I have 2 balconies, and I do get direct sun coming in right from my bedroom.
Nice.
And so I started to compare a lot of things, and the neighborhood itself is a little cafes, little shops, little restaurants here and there, little pubs, and people. I don't know what Chelsea is. I've been there once, but people are saying it's almost like a new Chelsea. It's going to become very trendy. I'm happy that I got here 3 years ago because I was right on the cusp of nobody knowing about it. People now know about it.
Yeah.
I will tell anybody that is thinking about, if you're thinking about doing it now, do it now. It's a wise investment. There's a lot of things compared to the United States to move here on why to move here.
So you purchased your property. Is it a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and how much are they going for in real estate there?
Well, it is a T1. You can probably see in the background.
Okay.
Bedroom just because it looks nicest. But then again, I'm an interior designer. It's a T1. It's 35 square meters.
Okay.
You walk one room. As soon as you walk in, it is the living room, dining room, kitchen, and bathroom, pretty much all in that first space. And then I have a bedroom in the second space. And like I said, the icing on the cake here is to have wraparound balconies. And my balconies are not iron, they are granite walls. So the privacy is incredible.
Yeah.
And my view is, because I'm on the rooftop, treetops. I don't see any neighbors. I look out and I see just trees and birds.
Yeah.
And the nickname for my apartment is known as the tree house when my friends come over. I also work as a property scout for a lot of expats and people that have either scouted out or are looking for places, but they can't be here.
Okay.
And
Good to know.
yeah, well, just because my demeanor and the way that I've approached my business and the way that I've always been very transparent with people, they're relying on that for my honesty to give them an assessment of, they see an apartment online, they're in Savannah, Georgia, or wherever they're Minnesota. They're like, can you go look at this property to tell me what is the neighborhood like? Are there cafes? Depending on what people are looking for, is there a place to walk the dog? Whatever it is, give my opinion on the location, the neighborhood, as well as the building structure. Excuse me. And then also the interiors of an apartment. So I've been helping people assess, and I get to, which is great. I get to see a lot of different properties, a lot of different budgets, even from renting for long term. And if somebody needed to rent for long term, there are relocation scouts. One of them in particular that I work with, that is excellent, and he deals with long term contracts, which are anywhere from 10 to 12 months, 3 years, 5-year rentals. Those requirements that you need for your visa, I know that you need to have some sort of residency. You can't have, they don't have PO boxes here, just a little FYI. You need to have something like that. And so I've worked with him and a few other of my friends that are real estate brokers, agents, to find long-term rentals, and even people that are looking to buy. In Porto, there aren't very many I don't think there are any bad neighborhoods. The safety here is off the charts. It is extremely safe. So I would say, you can find a T2 for a decent T2 for 11 to 1200 thereabouts. I've got people that are renting for 3-year long-term leases, large 2 and 3 bedrooms if you wanted to rent. And this is for retired couples at 2 to 3,000 a month. Yes,
Okay.
those are available. Those are a little bit, those are larger rooms. Those are in good areas. Those might be in apartment buildings of 30 or 40 units each, as opposed to the typical in Portugal is about 6 to 12. Gaia is the little town across the river from Porto. It's
Okay.
only a 10-minute walk. A lot of people go there because the rents are cheaper. It's a different kind of living. It's not so much cobblestone and the Portuguese, style that everybody, the tiles covered buildings. But a lot of people do move there because they get a lot more space.
What do 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms go for if you're going to purchase there now? Roughly, what do they start
In
at?
in Porto, well, I know that there's a beautiful, very large T1 for rent here, just right down the street in my neighborhood. That's going for 520,000 euros. And that
Okay.
may seem a lot for a T1, but it is in a big, beautiful historic building. The rooms are large, the bathrooms are large. It's worth the price. Typically a T1 or anything like that would probably be around 300,
Starting out at 300.
300, you're going to get a decent T1. You can find them for 200,000, 250. That's really starting to go Gaia. It's starting to go into areas that are a little bit more urban sprawl. I love the charm of Porto and Portugal with the cobblestone streets and these buildings that are tile covered and the little pubs. So I like that. There are other people that move here. In Porto, there's a town right up the maybe about 8 or 9 kilometers up, if that far, called Lessa de Palmera. Those have a little bit more apartment buildings. A lot of retirees do go there.
Palmera. And the other one was Gaia, Gaia.
Correct. Gaia is the town right across the river. If you look at Porto, it's divided by the Douro. It's only a 10-minute walk. The best thing about Gaia is the view of Porto, because when you're over there, you really get to appreciate how beautiful Porto is with the little stack homes and everything. Everywhere you look, the panoramic, it looks like a postcard.
Yeah.
It really is.
Wow.
Anybody can Google any kind of pictures of Porto, and they're going to look like they're paintings. They're going to look like, well, that looks like a typical European town. That is almost like the fallacy here is, for me, being from Los Angeles, everything looks like a movie set.
Yeah.
And these just look so beautiful and pristine, old and worn down, but that's the character. A lot of things happen over here. You have to compare the fact that nothing in the United States is more than 200 years old. Here, we're talking centuries.
Yes.
We're talking about centuries of architecture and castle walls. And, they do a little bit of digging here and there. They find a Roman aqueduct. Again, it's a different philosophy, but that's the trade-off of living in an old world country.
Yeah. Now, when you rent a flat there, does that include utilities, or are they separate?
It all depends. Some of them, it all depends. It's subjectional, just like in the United States. They do, when I was renting as an Airbnb, it's all included. I know other people that rent, it's included. The landlords here, normally you're lucky if you get direct contact with a landlord who is the owner. It might just be somebody managing it. And it's reasonable. I'm on, for utilities, my electricity, I pay 75 euros a month flat rate, and then they prorate it at the end of the year. If I don't use that much, I get a refund.
Gotcha. That's electric. What do you pay for water?
Water, I think, is the same thing, and I think it's probably maybe about 10 or 12 euros thereabouts. One of the, I don't get a water bill per se, because when you open up your account, and this is a wonderful thing about Portugal at Porto, when you open up your bank account, your banker will give you and help you sign up for your NIF, which is your tax number. He will help you sign up for your cable, your electrical, your water, and your health insurance, all through the banker, and we'll do the the automatic withdrawals out of it. So I know that it's not that much of a hit. It doesn't, you have to budget it, but it's not that expensive.
Mhm.
Um, at least I don't consider it. 75 euros sounds like a lot of money per month for electricity. But I might get, and that's if that's over the entire year, I might get. Last year, I got like 400 euros back.
Mhm. Gotcha.
I wasn't air conditioning. I wasn't using my heating, if only when I needed it.
Do you
And so
you use gas there?
no electric.
Electric.
Everything,
Just
mostly everything here is electric, even the
electric.
cooking. Um,
Okay.
uh, it's one of those things. You have an electric heater, you have an electric stove, and I have a small little refrigerator. I do run my air conditioning when it gets really hot, but I'll only run it for a couple of hours to get the chill into the air. And the same thing with the heater. When it gets damp and rainy over here, I'll turn on the heater. Not that often.
What's the Wi-Fi go for there?
Wi-Fi. So my cable, which is Mio company, and my Wi-Fi is, I think, about 48 euros a month for the entire TV package I have, which
Okay.
includes a whole bunch of stations, because I want to watch American stations and American things here and there on TV. So that's probably a little bit higher than most.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's my month. If it's my monthly utilities, if you're doing the math, it's probably about 150 euros, 200 euros,
Mhm.
um, thereabouts. Which I don't think is expensive. Again, I'm jaded from living in Los Angeles and
Yeah.
Hollywood for 20 years of what I think things should cost, and to what reality is in the rest of the world of what things cost.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, when I lived in New York, I mean, it's a super expensive place to live. So is LA, but everything is becoming that in the United States as well.
You
Doesn't
know,
matter
it's
where you're at. If you live in a decent sized city in the US, I mean, rents are high. They have skyrocketed everywhere. What do you pay? Are groceries reasonable in Porto?
groceries are very reasonable, especially if you cook. It's very easy not to cook here because they have uh, cafes and pubs everywhere that are cheap. So they will have what's known as a menu special,
Okay.
and I take advantage of those all the time. Those are the €8 lunch specials, which include a drink, an entree, a side, always a cup of coffee, and sometimes a dessert. And that's your
Nice.
lunch.
Wow.
Uh, so it's very easy to eat out more often than not. Groceries are very inexpensive. I spend maybe, I think it's about 64 euros every 2 to 3 weeks. And if I spend over 50 euros, I get a free taxi cab drive home with my groceries.
So I
So
mean, you're spending maybe 100 or 120 a month on groceries.
yeah, that's about right. The food here is very reasonable, and it's very easy to fall into the trappings of eating out 2 and 3 nights a week, because
Mhm.
for dinner, your grilled chicken or whatever it is about 8.50, and then if you add a drink here and there, but you can get in and out for a dinner, not at a fancy place, for about 12 to 15 euros.
Mhm.
And that's including a drink, and that's outdoor cafe in Europe, and just part of the experience. And a lot of people eat outside. It is a very social country. It's very, especially in Porto. So I do find it affordable. Where my personal budget gets probably whacked out a little bit is I like to go out to the clubs and the pubs and the bars. And if that's once a week and I'm spending 40 or 50 euros on drinks, or twice a week, spending like 20 or 30 euros. So that budget of 40 euros a week turns out to be 200 euros a month.
That's your
That's
entertainment. That's your fun.
that's my fun. A lot of people here drink beer and wine. Your
Yeah.
wine glasses are €2 and €4. I'm having cocktails, and those are 5 and 6 and 8 and 10, and
Right.
all of that. That's what the big difference is. A lot of people here, the locals as well as the tourists, do go out and have the pub culture is very popular here, but they drink in €2 and €3 beers. Very
Yeah.
easy to still not make a dent in the budget. I go out
How much is a beer and a glass of wine there currently?
€4, €2. You know, €2 for draft, for only Superbock, by the way. All right, so Superbock is Sagres is Lisbon. Do not ask for Sagres in Porto. You can ask for Superbock in Lisbon. They don't take it as serious because they know actually Superbock is a better beer, and it's Porto based. It's cheap. You don't spend. You would talk about the price of food and groceries. A good bottle of wine here is about 6 or 7 euros.
Yeah.
Nobody, you're being very
Yeah.
bougie if you spend 12 euros on a bottle of wine.
Yeah, and they don't export those. They keep them there because if they're over here, they're like $50.
There are a lot of Portuguese wines that are exported that are so expensive, and
Yeah.
I see the same wines in the grocery stores for maybe 8 euros a bottle that I see in the good restaurants when there's for 4 euros a glass. It's still a great wine.
Yeah.
The Portuguese are, when you talk about the wines, the Portuguese have a little bit of a sarcastic, but kind of like a little tongue-in-cheek kind of expression, whereas in the French love the French wines, and the Italians love the Italian wines, and the Portuguese love wine.
Yeah.
And really basically because their wines rival the Italian and the French wines. When those sommelier comes over in Portugal and gives you a little taste of the wine, like, is it Douro, Alentejo? Where is it? Just pour it. It's going to be delicious. I don't know of anyone that's had a bad glass of wine here.
Yeah.
And it's inexpensive. We're in the #1 wine region, the Douro Valley. That's the other thing too, where Porto is situated. Within about 30 minutes of a drive out of the town, you're in lush landscape. You're in a microclimate of stepped hills that are the vineyards. You go an hour and a half and you're in this tropical rainforest, national forest, all up and down the Douro. We're spoiled by the geography up here. Lisbon in the southern part, not so much, but up in Porto area, definitely spoiled by that, and because of our wine. Excuse me, the wines are so cheap and inexpensive here.
Okay, so let's go into getting around. That Porto has a metro, right? Or
They do. They have an
Okay.
incredible, great public transportation system between the metro and the buses, of which I have not used.
Okay.
I do not car. This is where, there's a lot of expats that use the metro here. It is wonderful. To me, I am a little spoiled. I find the 2 and 3 euro Bolt/Uber trips affordable. The metro is what everybody uses, is perfect, and it's a fraction of the cost, obviously. So anybody can use the metro. A lot of retirees, a lot of people that move here instantly adapt it. They get their cards, they do all of that. They have promised to show me how to do it. I just, in LA, I never used public transportation. And this is not a elitist or a snobby thing. I just always had my car and I was driving to my clients. I had my business, my passenger seat was my office. And so I was always driving and did not use public transportation. I came here falling into the same trappings. I don't drive. I don't have a car. When I need to get out of town, I can take the train, the metro train, and go 45 minutes and be in a different town in a neighborhood. I had downloaded an article that I had read about day trips from Porto. And I've gone to every single destination that was on there, about 15 of them. I stay overnight because the accommodations to me are cheap. I like to stay in these little towns overnight to get more of a feeling of them. And it's still cheap. It's still a fraction of the cost to take the metro versus I do take Ubers, I don't use Uber. I use Bolt. Bolt is what Portuguese use, and that is local based. So these are the Portuguese drivers. These people, I'd rather give my money to them than somebody that's got their finger on the scale a little bit. And I will go 30 kilometers outside of town, and that might cost me about 20 euros, 17 euros, 20 euros. Again, for me, it's worth it. I get out of town. If I'm doing work, that's billable for a client, but an Uber drive for 25 to 30 minutes for only, 15, 17 euros. I don't think that's bad, and to be plucked in somewhere, that's work related. If I'm going on vacation, I take the train, and the train is just 5 and 6 euros to get to another town an hour away.
And the last thing, that this is a big issue because, as you know, healthcare incredibly outrageous in the US. So anybody that's always looking to live overseas, they're wondering what the healthcare system's like. So
You
what can
and
you tell us?
I are men of a certain age. So, where all of the new tests start to come in. It is extremely affordable. Again, we are brainwashed to thinking of what it should be. So when you get here with your NIF, you have to then sign up for this at the local SUAD, and the SUAD is your local hospital, so that you can get into their healthcare system, and that's what gives you free healthcare, free
Okay.
medication or something on the that's cheap. I opted, like so many other people, for a private insurance plan on top of what you automatically get anyways. And that health plan is 59 euros a month.
Wow. Okay. And that's a private healthcare
It's a
plan.
private, it's called Medis, is again set up by my banker. What do you need and all that stuff. And I think it's going up for, I think I got a notice that it's going up for 6 euros a month. So it could be now 64.
What is it
But
called? Medis?
MEDIS,
M
Medis.
okay.
MEDIS. It's one of the best ones, I think, that I found. I'm relatively healthy. There's not anything going on, but a prime example is as we reach that age, men of a certain age, you have to go for your colonoscopy. I remember what it was in the United States, and it's the pre-op meeting, your blood test, and you have to take a liquid, and then you go in, and it's anesthesia and all that. Did the same thing here a year ago, because they have it at 55. They have it 50 and 55 years, and it was a few doctor's appointments prior to the scheduled date, taking your blood, double checking the day before, taking that liquid, going in again, blood test, make sure everything is okay, going under anesthesia, meeting the anesthesiologist, going under, getting the procedure, recuperating in the pre-op room. They make sure that you pay before you leave. That's the other thing too. You have to give your credit card. So in my mind, in the United States, that would be thousands of dollars out of pocket, even with insurance.
Easy. Yeah.
In my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be possibly even on the cheap side, about 400 or 500 euros. I'm going to have to pay for this. Anesthesiology, number one, is always expensive thing.
Right.
It was 159 euros, and plus 17 euros for the follow-up office visit afterwards. And so whatever that is, 170, so 17 and 159. And that was it.
Wow. So you paid out of pocket for that procedure.
I had my insurance. I don't know what the insurance portion was. I paid 159 euros out of pocket as I'm leaving in groggy. They want your credit card, but that was it. And when you need medication or anything like that, it is not even a fraction. It's a decimal of the cost of what we think medication should cost over there. To get just the simple things that I need in the United States would have been, even with the CVS card or my insurance there, 60, 70 euros per prescription. Here it's about 5 to 10 euros.
So let me ask you this. The public healthcare program that they have is free. Why did you opt for the private plan? And if you would have done the colonoscopy in the public healthcare system, would it all have been covered?
It would have all been covered, but then you have to, you are in a long queue. There's a long, don't know when it's going to happen. They're not, it's not, this was a procedure that is elective or like not an emergency. And so it might have been, it would have probably been free going through the system. That the medical staff, the doctors here are excellent, from public healthcare to private healthcare. They have a different philosophy on the job at hand. And they have a lot more respect for doctors and nurses and practitioners here than over in the United States, to where it's expensive for the medical school. Then they have to work, and these people are tired and they're beat down, and they want to be in a profession that helps people. And I don't want to say they take the fun out of it, but it's not as much in service in the United States as over here. People are very friendly. They're very helpful. It's a totally different experience. And again, I run very healthy, so I'm not having any kind of opposition in the social media groups that I've followed. When people have had issues, they've fallen down, they've hurt themselves, they've gotten very good care, very, very attentive And the doctors, it's almost they don't make house calls, but it's almost that same kind of feeling. They take a genuine interest. They will do follow-up calls.
Yeah. That's I mean, we covered a lot. That's everything. Is there anything else that you can think of that the could be beneficial for the viewers about Porto that we didn't talk about or cover? Anything?
Um, just definitely, if you're thinking of buying, if you have the money to invest right now, to do it, because things are going to change. I said this 3 years ago. Things are going to change in 2 years. They did. Things are going to change in 5 years. They did. They will. Come out, explore Porto. Spend at least 3-4 days, nights in Porto, and get the feeling. It's hard to explain. There is a feeling here. There is a way that the Portuguese people just treat you, that it's the last bastion of humanity. I think the people are genuine here. And Porto right now, Portugal itself is blowing up. The flavor of the day 8 years ago used to be Croatia. Before that, it was Prague. Porto right now, I think, is one of the last places that has been unfounded, that is being found now, and to where it is affordable.
Well, Kevin Young, man, thank you so much for doing this and sharing all this information, taking the time out of your day to do this. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure speaking to you, and I hope I could help some people just, find a new direction in life.